So Vivekda, it's been sort of, I think, a very exciting week in general. I heard that you just came back from one of those very nice plays.
Yeah.
I also did happen to sort of, visit one of these concerts this Saturday. So it's been eventful that way. So what are we talking about today? What's on your mind?
So I believe today is a momentous day, and instead of talking about the political situation of the country, which we'll come to in a future episode, but since it's an ever-developing situation right now, I think we touch on a lighter yet more futuristic perspective, and let's talk about electric vehicles in general. And
I love it. Absolutely.
Just to preface that, like, why electric vehicles? It's mostly because today was a momentous day for one new EV company, you can say, which is Ola Electric, which had their version 2 of their EV specific operating system released today, in which they've, I would say, managed to finally deliver on the promises which they had made years back when they first showcased their electric EVs. But before coming to that and all of that, but the whole then what Ola is doing and all.
Let's talk about what essentially are electronic vehicles.
Correct. Let's take a step back.
What are the challenges that they're facing as of today in order for market penetration?
Correct. So basically, let's take a step back and let's overall look at the picture of EVs. Like with a special focus on India, as we usually do, right? And let us talk about the timeline.
So we are not going to talk about Tesla today.
Yeah, but Tesla will be there, but at the same time not be there as well.
It's one of those things you can't ignore it, and I think this is also an interesting news that Tesla has said that before it sets up manufacturing in India, it's very interesting that they want to actually turn it into a market first.
Yeah, but at the same time, the government will not allow that because of the policies that we have, and I sort of support the government in this endeavor as well.
Same.
Tesla has an acid test policy wherein they sell a few more cars by importing them first to decide how much the pull the market has, and then they take decisions as to whether or not to set up a base of operations, which is fine for few countries. Specifically,
even to say like that will actually come to the second part where we're talking about the challenges. So let's talk about what EVs are.
Yeah. So basically, coming back. So as I was saying, so we talk about EVs, right? So EVs, you may think that they are a very 2010, 2012 concept, and like Tesla was the pioneer of the EVs, as some people think, right? But that is actually not the case, because if you look at EVs, we've had EVs way back since the 1800s, like 1870s, 1880s, right? That was when humankind started experimenting with EVs, and we had the first prototype EVs. Okay, but then at that point of time, since it was a prototype, it did not make much waves, and it was forgotten about, right? It was not until the year 1996 that we saw the first production EV. Production EV essentially means that the word production, rather to automotive, means that it was available mass market and you could actually go to a dealership and buy it, right? That is what production means. So we got our first production EV, you could say, in the year 1996 when General Motors launched a car that they called the EV1, and they sold very limited numbers of it in I believe in California, just to meet certain regulations and norms in relation to green commitments, as far as I remember. Just to meet that, General Motors has made a very limited edition of these EV1s, and after that everything was forgotten and everybody forgot about EVs and everything and all that, right? Then, as we were discussing, comes Tesla into the picture, and Tesla has this,
I think there were a few other companies beside Tesla as well, at least with Indian perspective. I'm saying, like, I don't know if you remember those tiny cars. I can't remember the name of the car.
Basically,
like the tiny electric cars with two people sitting.
Yeah. So basically, those were again prototypes. Those were mass market per se, like production vehicles per se. Those were again prototypes at the same time, and was also limited for very specific use cases.
Exactly.
But post the EV1 is, after that is what we see is Tesla. Why I am saying Tesla is, again, I am not referring to Tesla as it is the brand today that we all come and know, right? So Tesla also has a history wherein Tesla started first with the Roadster, which they had demoed, and then comes the Model X, the Model S, and the rest is history. The Tesla, you could say, popularized the concept of EVs, like in a time where we desperately needed it. And why I say that we desperately needed it, I'll come to that. But Tesla is what made the world realize that EVs are something that can actually be seriously looked at and could serve as a viable form of transportation or a viable form of fuel in comparison to the more traditional standards that we were having, right?
Exactly. So, also Vivek, on that point, like, do you also think that like Tesla has contributed massively in, I'm not saying whether in creation of the EVs and everything, but also massively in increasing general awareness about what we so want to talk about, that is the environment, that we are at the brink of a disaster. We are seeing sea levels rising, we are seeing terrible tectonic movements, we are seeing a lot of those things which you would sort of define as almost apocalyptic, for that matter, right? And I feel like, of course, like, as much as we do talk about all of this these days, a lot more than maybe perhaps we used to back in the day, or back even when we were studying SUPW in school, we were just starting to get to know about all of these concepts of sustainability and everything. So I think our generation took it upon themselves, and we are in general a little woke about the environment and everything.
So that's the thing, what I was saying was Tesla made talking about renewable energy, renewable sources, electric powered things, right, seem cool, trendy, and that is what drove customers to it due to their high marketing strategy, and also made Tesla the very valuable company that it is today. And that is what also made the industry take notice of EVs, and it has brought us to a place where
even like, for that matter, luxury companies right now, if you see like Porsche and
that's the thing,
like, they are also getting into that market.
Correct. And that is what has made the traditional car market, even as on date, rethink their position and strategy about EVs. And also every major brand, you would say, be it that of a luxury car maker, that of Porsche or a Lamborghini, or even a very regular like
Tata.
like Tata, like Mahindra. So they are also now doubling down, if not going full swing, and revamping their entire manufacturing scale, right?
Like before actually the COVID, like not only that, Tata took up this initiative also to restore the Jaguar E-Type back in 2019 or 2020, which was eventually discontinued after the COVID situation. But that was also being made, like, refurbished into a full EV, functioning EV model. So we are seeing, so it is established that we are seeing those developments happen. So Viveka, what's stopping us? What's stopping
essentially
from directly getting into the market and be absolutely in use, for that matter?
Correct. So essentially, I'll tell you something. So with EVs and in technology in general, right? So the EV made the car more of a product rather than an asset, right? Because of all the fancy features and everything that comes with that. But at the same time, and this is a very personal thing that I believe in, and I would suggest to our listeners and viewers as well, is that unless you have the money for it and you have some money to burn, right, I would suggest in any case skip the first generation. Because we've had the first generation of EVs, we've had the first generation of Teslas, we've had the first generation of Tatas, we've had the first generation of every EV manufacturer, and now they are slowly progressing towards the second generation and onwards, right? Like Tesla, with their second generation, have focused more on their battery and delivering more range. They've changed the steering wheel only from the normal, like the O-shaped steering wheel to the yoke steering wheel, right? Tata, if you look at it, they very recently released their new lines for the, I believe, the Avinia and the Curve, right, concepts, right? So everybody is moving the second generation, and so second generation, third generation onwards is where we will see greater adoption. But now, coming to the challenge question which you mentioned, right? The biggest challenge that we have is we've got EVs, we've got decent range. But the point is, EVs were introduced not only to serve as an alternative to petrol and diesel and natural gas, right? They were there to give us a more greener and more cleaner future. Correct.
Exactly.
But the biggest challenge that barring the manufacturing scale, what people are facing in the EV sector and the EV industry is providing clean, renewable energy for powering those vehicles. So you could
Exactly.
see-
So
yeah,
that creates that you've very well highlighted a conundrum that is going on in the market. That is, so even though we are coming up with products which actually use is not per se adding to your carbon footprint per se that way, but in the long run, unless we are also coming up with viable ways to actually provide this clean energy to these EVs to run through like various channels like what we have, like I'm pretty certain that petrol pumps would be replaced by charging places like what Tesla has, right? In various places they have charging pods and everything where you can just go connect it.
So that's the thing. So like even for Tesla, right? Tesla is also trying to like make all its superchargers and normal chargers green. And when I say green, I mean they're powered by natural and renewable sources. But the rest of the country, including the rest of the world, even rather, I should not even say the rest of the country, they are still using traditional forms of power to recharge or charge up like green vehicles.
So because we actually also lack a lot of statistics, because it's very difficult to assume in such a condition as to whether or not this will actually
So basically that's the thing, So that's the thing.
Like it might become like one of those demonetization situations, where people are in the road and they're like, okay, what's happening, Because
that's the thing, I was reading up a study regarding this also very recently, wherein I had noted that in comparison to that of natural fuel that we most vehicles that nowadays are still using, but we are slowly and steadily seeing an EV adoption. The difference in using more traditional sources of power, like recharge and refuel EVs, essentially only has a 33 to 35% difference, as far as I remember, in terms of using the normal petrol or diesel vehicle in terms of how green it is. Right?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. So even for that matter, let's go into the Ola story and let's talk about as to how Ola is really contributing and how it is doing something a little differently compared to all the other EV companies because
correct.
The two-wheeler market, right?
Correct. So see, the situation with Ola is very unique in the sense that it is experimenting in the large scale in the EV market, right? But with two-wheelers. So this is something very rare and very unique because I don't think I've heard other geographies where we've had such an experiment with two-wheelers per se. And India, as you know, it's a very big two-wheeler market, very big. More than four-wheelers, people have two-wheelers in the country, right? So if you look at it, a typical Indian household, they would ideally have 1 to 2 two-wheelers, and if not one four-wheeler, or now no four-wheelers.
Exactly, like there's due to like what we were talking about prior to this as well, that there has been a global change in the price. Like there has been a massive increase in the price of oil over the last 4 months in itself because of the Russian crisis, Russian-Ukraine crisis. Right. And not only that, even last year during the COVID crisis, we saw a change in oil prices due to a problem relating to shortage of supply. Like storage.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So things like this is what Ola is trying to tackle, with the two-wheeler EVs and all that they've introduced. But the main problem with that was this was a very rushed approach, if you personally ask me. Why I'm saying rushed is because there have been series of incidents surrounding Ola. If you've been following the news, right? There have been incidents of vehicle catching fires. There have been instances where vehicles have been delivered with quality defects, quality control issues, right? There's non-functioning screens, panel lamps.
But don't you think for any company who's doing something so remarkably different and radical in a way, we expect such.
See, the problem that is there is, again, I will harp on my statement that skip the first generation, which I mentioned before, and this is the first generation for Ola, right? But the bigger problem with Ola is this is a very rushed approach. In the sense that if Ola had taken the additional 6 months, which has now happened, like if you've been following the release of the Ola S1 and S1 Pros, right? They came out, I believe, around September to October of last year, and when the deliveries started happening, right? To where we are today, it has been roughly 8 to 9 months since then. And now we are finally seeing this situation take shape. Like today, if you look at it, today is 19th of June, right? Today is the day when Ola updated the version 2 of their software, wherein they've finally delivered on the stuff that they have promised. Like finally delivered in the sense they have finally given music playback to their
Yeah.
scooters. They finally given navigation features. They finally given the
So
ability.
it's becoming actually usable
Yeah.
for that matter.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah. They
usable
finally
device
given
now.
them the ability now. You wouldn't believe how ridiculous is this. The scooter did not come with any physical key, right? So in order to lock or unlock the scooter and to basically to start the scooter, you had to like input the 6-digit or 4-digit pin on the scooter's display to start or lock or unlock it. Finally, after 9 months, they have now have a companion app which works on Bluetooth, which allows you to lock and unlock remotely. This is how half-baked it was when it was released. Which is why, again, to all our viewers and listeners, if you have the money to burn, buy first generations. Otherwise, don't. Wait it out. It's
So,
never
which
going to be
brings me to
better.
the last part of this discussion
Yeah.
is that which I wanted to really talk about is like what can the government do to accommodate such change? So we have seen that our legislation, it's not only just our legislation, I think any legislation for that matter suffers from a lot of cultural lag when it comes to adopting new technology in general. We saw the same thing, we're seeing that same thing actually. Like, even today, even though there is taxation on all of that, we still don't see any proper regulation coming up for something like cryptocurrency.
So,
Now,
see, to sum
yeah,
up,
so-
so to sum up, essentially, the steps that the government should take, right? First of all, the government should very strictly what they've
I
started.
think the first thing that the government should do is
Yeah.
build capacity prior to something actually like.
No, so
if we
more than
have
the capacity,
massive-
so more than the capacity, what the government has done. So again, this is a very recent development in light of the fires that have been happening with Ola and other such two-wheeler EV manufacturers. Is that they've told them that so long as your technology is not fit to be released to mass market, in the sense that your battery packs are not safe, your scooters are not quality tested and assured at all, you are not allowed to sell any new vehicles anymore.
So the first pointer for that would be the head broader pointer would be that having more stricter regulation in terms of
Correct. Stricter
And
regulation
check
in the sense that like
in terms of quality check,
Correct.
and maybe amend the consumer here to include this, which I don't think will be required per se. Like
Not really,
like
yeah,
it
but
will
at
be
the same time,
consumer rights will automatically also protect all of this, and so. But I think there should also be a joint recommendation regarding that, just so that there isn't any confusion when it comes down to that.
Right.
So what I was telling Vivek was actually about building capacity before, that's what I'm saying. If there are Olas and other companies who enter the market and then they start marketing these products, and people do not have the means to actually utilize them, by which I mean that they will have to set up a lot of pods,
so that's what I'm
charging
saying.
pods and everything.
The only good news in that field is that essentially, when you talk about building capacity, right, the only good news that I have for you in that is there is a consensus in the sense that what should be the basic charging standard, right? The plug points. There is some consensus there, but where we are lacking as on date is the charging infrastructure, as in that there should be more mass availability of chargers and there should be adoption of faster charging standards. Like, I'm not saying it has to be as fast.
This has been rolled out by Tesla just recently.
No, even the turbochargers, right? That is something what we should strive to have, right? Because I'm not saying that it has to be as fast as refueling an ICE vehicle, wherein it takes you just 5 to 10 minutes depending on the line at the petrol pump, right? But it should be still moderately fast, so that you can go from 0 to 80 or 20 to 100% within, let's say, 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. That should be the recommended amount of time that it should take for you to charge, right? Now, the other thing that is there is this should also be clean and green approach, because the whole point of EVs is to reduce the pollution that the ICE vehicles are doing the humankind has done so far on the environment. So if you are planning for it, you should plan a full green approach instead of a partial green approach, first of all.
Because ultimately it will, I think, if you go for one of those partial green approach, you might actually see a surge in natural gases and coal being burned more for the purpose of
Correct. So that would defeat the purpose in itself, right?
Exactly, because the electricity demand automatically will increase.
Correct.
You have so many
Correct. So definitely
cars,
agree. To your point regarding the capacity building, this is something which is absolutely mandatory. Second of all, like I said, the stricter vehicle norms and regulations. And thirdly, and this is again a very futuristic point of view, but certain organizations, I say, but rather EV companies have been taking this approach is having us like a setup where instead of charging, we are looking at user replaceable batteries, which will make the process even more quicker and seamless in terms of charging your batteries. Because
Yes, all of these will have to be considered in a very, very macro scale.
Yeah.
In the sense, and also in the sense that you proudly mentioned that we have to make sure that all of this is made available without any additional strain on the environment.
Correct. So yeah, that's the main takeaway. So that's
So I think that's a wrap for today.
Yeah.
I hope you have a great week. Everybody who's listening out there, I hope you have a great week. We are recording this on a Sunday. And so Viveka, there is a good night.
Yep.
Okay?
See you, man. We'll talk again in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Yes. Hopefully about Agnipath.
Yep.
Okay.
See ya.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.